about the 3+1 over the last couple of days, and specifically the institutionalization of the 3+1. And frankly, we get to witness some of this institutionalization. The Interparliamentary Forum, with 6 representatives from each of the United States, Cyprus, Greece, and Israel, is a milestone in this relationship. It's an all-star team, by the way, I must say. You have former finance minister, you have 3 former foreign ministers, and a former prime minister of Greece on this forum. So we have a parliamentary forum that's already built up with amazing statesmen. As I say, it's an all-star team, and like my hometown team, the greatest team of all time, the Chicago Bulls, it has its Michael Jordan, Senator Robert Menendez, who will kick us off. He was going to join us Zoom in live, but the president of South Korea is addressing Congress just like Prime Minister Mitsotakis did about a year ago, and Senator Menendez is in that address right now, so he's joining us via video message.
This is Senator Paul Menendez, New Jersey's senior senator and chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It's an honor to be included in the Delphi Economic Forum. Thank you for the chance to speak with you today on the topic of the 3+1 diplomatic format of Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the United States. I'm pleased that we officially kicked off the Interparliamentary Group last week, which will help set a robust agenda to include energy security, maritime security, and economic growth. This discussion comes at a critical time. The Eastern Mediterranean faces many challenges in today's geopolitical landscape. Direct parliament-to-parliament coordination and cooperation will strengthen our country's ties. And the institutionalizing of this parliamentary framework to complement the intergovernmental group will allow it to grow and evolve over time, just as we've seen with the NATO alliance or the European Union. The 3+1 format has historically focused on energy issues, and I think that will continue to be a major focus of this partnership, given the threat of climate change and the need for energy security. As we have seen over the past year, dangerous leaders like Erdogan or Putin are willing to try to use energy as a weapon. The best defense against such aggression is having strong alliances with like-minded partners who are willing to stand up for their democratic neighbors. Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the United States are nations that I believe are united by such shared interests and values. As countries move away from Russian energy sources, Europe will have to adapt, and the Eastern Mediterranean has already demonstrated its potential as part of the solution. I'm proud that I've been a leader in Congress on this issue. I've authored and passed the Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act, which authorized a new energy center to help unlock the region's full energy potential. I've spoken to Secretary Granholm at the U.S. Department of Energy about concrete plans on moving forward with the Energy Center to better leverage our universities and the private sector. And I will continue to support key regional infrastructure projects like the Euro-Africa and Euro-Asia interconnectors to help better connect the Eastern Mediterranean with the Western Balkans, Central Europe, Moldova, and Ukraine. I've also been working on legislation to help support energy security and independence from Russia. We need to make sure we are using U.S. tools to support projects coming out of the Eastern Mediterranean, capitalizing on the region's solar potential to help move energy from Southern Europe northward. We've already seen great progress in Alexandroupoli, which serves as a major U.S. military and NATO defense hub, and is now transforming into an energy hub with a new liquefied natural gas facility as well. It's enormously gratifying to see that we had the foresight to anticipate that Alexandroupoli could become a vital asset for Western security. I'm committed to working with Ambassador Sounis and our Greek partners to continue investing and developing it to the point that it truly can become the Suda of the North. All these efforts will pay security dividends by making the region less dependent on fossil fuels from Russia and other autocracies. And at the same time, the 3+1 format has to be about more than energy. We have to be united with our military partners and allies. Our collective capabilities with Greece, Cyprus, and Israel will be vital in deterring future aggression in the Eastern Mediterranean. I'm pleased that we're starting to see some of the changes come into effect, including the lifting of restrictions of sales of weapons to Cyprus. And as you've all probably seen, Greece is poised to be the next recipient of a fleet of F-35s. This forum will be a strong voice that communicates joint messages about the importance of territorial integrity, particularly in maritime economic zones. I know some of the members of the group want to be thinking about cybersecurity and port security as well. It's my hope that we can also use this forum to promote new and clean technologies that will benefit all our countries for generations to come. The Eastern Mediterranean is a region full of incredible promise. That's why I think this gathering forum is so important. It's why the 3+1 format is so important. And it's why, in the long term, institutionalizing our alliances is so important as well. So let's keep building on the successes we've already made together. And let's celebrate our efforts to bring greater security and prosperity to the Eastern Mediterranean. The best of luck to all of you at the forum. Ευχαριστώ.
And we'll continue the all-star theme and go on to the head of the Greek delegation, Dora Bacogyanni, who also gave us a video message.
Dear friends, I'm sorry that I could not attend this wonderful Delphi Forum in person this year. Unfortunately, whoever has ever taken part in elections knows how crucial it is to be in Crete during the pre-election campaign. So it's a pleasure to address you, to address a message to you and to my esteemed colleagues. I want to thank Mr. Zemενίδης for this coordination and support, as well as Mr. Gеωργιάδης, my Cyprus colleague, for his presence and of course for his close cooperation. Of course, allow me to thank and underline the role of Senator Bob Menendez, who has been a driving force for the 3+1 cooperation format and who is working tirelessly, making our region a priority for the US foreign policy. We had a productive teleconference meeting last week. The delegations from the US, from Greece, Cyprus and Israel came together in a full attendance, albeit from afar, and we discussed the shape and priorities this cooperation format can take. I want to offer some insight on that and underline without question the added value that such an interparliamentary format brings to diplomacy, stability and security. The 3+1 cooperation scheme can play a key part in the stability and prosperity of the East Med region. It is without a doubt a key tool for promoting cooperation among our four countries in energy, maritime security, research and innovation, and also as a forum for regional dialogue, especially in these critical times, following the Russian invasion in Ukraine and the great challenges that Europe is facing and will continue to face in the years to come. Our cooperation will reinforce European energy security and further consolidate transatlantic ties. There can be no question that our strategic planning here in the region will increase energy interconnections between the Eastern Mediterranean and Europe, promoting stability. At the same time, however, our format adds to more than energy security and prosperity. Given the geographical location of Greece, Cyprus and Israel, and the growing diplomatic and economic ties to the Western Balkans, Eastern Europe and the Gulf, this format of cooperation has the potential to serve as a key part of a new security architecture in the broader region. We have played this part in the past. Greece, time and again, has been an honest broker of peace and cooperation. I recall back in 2007, following the Greek presidency of the UN Security Council, our initiative for the Middle East process led to the Annapolis Conference, where I had the great cooperation with then the late President Bush. In a similar way, Greece, along with Cyprus and Israel, can be leaders in the prosperity and stability of the Mediterranean region. Our modus vivendi, our modus operandi, are none other than international law, peaceful settlement of disputes, dialogue, and above all, cooperation. After 3 intense and turbulent years in the Greek-Turkish relations that affected the entire region, the only way forward must be mutual understanding, setting aside differences, and finding ways to work together, much like Israel did with Lebanon. To conclude, I want to draw from our past and look into the future. Greece has always been a bridge between nations, cultures, and people, a bridge between the East and the West, between North and South. This is our brand, our unique feature. Today, we can play the same role with a multiplier effect and look to the future of our region. The next decades to come will bring challenges beyond comprehension, be it in energy and climate security, migration, geopolitical security, and of course, democracy and political stability. We have proven these last 4 years that we can be a force for progress, innovation, stability. Greece is one of the most credible and reliable partners in the region. Along with the US, with Cyprus and Israel, we can shape the East Med to become a prosperous place for the next generations. Thank you very much for your attention.
So I want to start with Mr. Gеorgiadis because we see a lot of celebration. There's almost a celebratory atmosphere in terms of 3+1. As the ambassador noted earlier today, maybe the best relations we've ever lived through. And it's tempting to forget when we lived through tougher times. And so let's begin at the start of this upswing, because there's an iconic picture, we have it, when then Vice President Biden went to Cyprus, and I think President Anastasiadis and now President Christodoulidis and you, and across from you is Vice President Biden, Jake Sullivan, Amos Hochstein, Amanda Sloat. So it's like we've come full circle. Cyprus was at the very beginning of this. Greece was in a crisis. A lot of the trilaterals were kicking off with informal contacts in Nicosia. And now, of course, we have the U.S. team is the same, but on this side of the 3+1, it's really you and President Christodoulidis who have been part of this the whole time, the last 10 years. What lessons have you learned from that start and the 10 years that you think you're going to bring to this 3+1?
Well, thank you, Andy. It's a great pleasure to be here. And yes, this has been a major policy objective for some time. And we both know that in politics, sometimes it takes time and therefore then dedication and commitment to achieve things. But I think we are now in an excellent position to move forward ambitiously. From our perspective, from the Cyprus perspective, the 3+1 is directly related to our clear political positioning in the West. This may not have been so much obvious in the distant past, but since Cyprus' accession to the EU, but especially during the last 10 years, this has been very obvious. And it has been manifested in all aspects of our policy, foreign and security policy, economic policy, banking, obviously energy. And within this framework, we have been advocating for close relations, for a close collaboration with all our regional neighbors, especially the two liberal democracies of the East Med, Greece, obviously, given also the national bonds and the national identity, but also Israel. Israel-Cyprus relations, the progress on Israel-Cyprus relations has been amazing, covering a broad range of policy areas from investment to defense. And also we consider US involvement, US engagement in the region as a must. Take energy. It can be both a prospect and a challenge, and we should include high-level political consideration in energy planning. I mean, as you said, I had a long tenure as finance minister. I can understand the need to consider financial aspects. I can understand when I hear that a pipeline, take the East Med, needs to be bankable. Yes, I understand, but I wonder, is the Nord Stream bankable now, when it's basically become obsolete due to political considerations? So our political partnership should emphasize the need to collaborate on energy and all the other aspects of this relationship. In fact, I would even say that in the East Med, European security will be tested, a rules-based international order will be tested, and we need to work together, and the 3+1 partnership is an excellent forum to do so, including the its parliamentary dimension. And yes, I'm delighted that the new government of Cyprus, the government of President Christodoulidis, has reaffirmed its commitment to this policy. But I am equally delighted to report that on this issue, there is strong, clear, cross-party support from left to right.
That's fantastic. That's important that now it's going through several governments, both actually in all three, in Cyprus, in Israel, in Greece, and of course across three administrations in the U.S. Ambassador, you gave us a take this morning on the regional importance of Greece and the East Med. So I want to go a little bit to a processing, a little insider baseball, because here in Greece especially, it feels like Congress was discovered only in the last 4 years. And unlike the typical ambassador, you actually have experience both in the legislative branch. You started your career as a Senate staffer. Now in the executive branch, you not only had to go through a confirmation process, you deal with Congress all the time. You've had a parade of members of Congress come through. And I also think Congress in the last several years has reaffirmed its role in U.S. foreign policy. Can you talk a little bit about how important Congress is in foreign policy, because it's different than most legislatures?
Thank you, Andy. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned insider baseball and the Chicago Bulls basketball team, because, you know, I'm from New York, and when I think about baseball, I think about, 27 championships that the Yankees have. I think 4 and 5 years at the same time the Bulls were winning it. The 1927 Yankees, Babe Ruth, Tony Lazzeri, a guy named Lou Gehrig. Se paracalo.
Poor Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease.
Not before he hit 493 home runs. A a son of immigrants from Norway, and I think that's what makes the United States so great. But to get to your question, how important is Congress? Well, its role is, I think, mentioned in the first or second paragraph of the Constitution. That's how important it is. Congress has advised and consent obligations, and they take that very, very seriously. Believe me, I was on both sides of that fence, so I know it better than others. But I would say two things about this. If you are not respectfully engaging with the legislative branch of the United States, and you know, these are the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, I think, is one of the original committees. If you are not engaging with the various committees in the legislative branch, you will not find problems. The problems will find you. They take that oversight responsibility very seriously, but you have to understand how our Congress works. There are 435 members in the House. There's 100 members in the Senate. You have well over a dozen committees, from finance to agriculture. What you do is you take on 2 or 3 committees and you become expert in those committees. You have hearings, you have briefings, you interact, you have codels, and I would go on to say that members of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Senate Foreign Relations Committee may spend more time with foreign leaders and more time visiting nations around the world than the executive branch. And, you know, they're able to have, as you know, in the executive branch, things are very formal. There's an agenda, and it's very structured. Whereas someone who's a member of the relevant committee can have a more informal conversation with an interlocutor here. I also want to pivot to the fact that that's what makes the 3+1 so important, because it enhances dialogue. Now, it provides a structure for it. It speaks to this is not only a responsibility and an obligation, but a priority, and that the 3 nations and the United States, the 4 of us, have now institutionalized a parliamentary dialogue, which I think is vitally important. And this work, I am certain, will progress in a manner that is constructive, that is cooperative. This is not geared to be against anyone or any nation in the region. Full stop. This is geared to enhance the level of understanding and cooperation of the 4 nations that participate in it, and to advance the laudable goals of peace, prosperity, and stability in the region. And I'm very excited for the work that's going to be done here, because it's important work. And I think they're very much up to the task, and I'm excited that we're standing up this process, because it is going to enhance all the things that are important to us in the region.
Mr. Kairidis, you know, you have been, you know, congressmen are used to doing the diplomacy that Ambassador Tunis just described, but we haven't really seen that as much from European parliamentarians. Until your last year, I have to say this because it doesn't get necessarily as much play as a minister, but I've seen you come to DC multiple times, speak at think tanks, speak at the Delphi Forum in DC, meet with APAC delegations here, AJC delegations, the Philos Project delegations. You're doing kind of a greater East Med, you're the head of the Friends of Israel caucus, you're on the 3+1 caucus, I think you're doing the Abraham Accords caucus, and you have expertise in the Balkans. Obviously you have US connections with universities. How do you think from the Greek and this legislative diplomacy is going to revolutionize Greek foreign policy in general, and especially its approach to East Med?
Thank you, Eddie. I think we are truly in a revolutionary moment. We are at a historic moment, a unique moment, and we need to emphasize and underline that because too often people, even politicians, not all, but some politicians tend to forget. And I will speak to you on three levels very briefly. The first has to do with the coalition of democracies, the 3+1. This new initiative underlines the fact that our three nations, together with the United States, do not only share common interests, but they share common values, the values of democracy, freedom, rule of law, respect for human rights. And therefore, our relationship is not transactional, is not temporary, it's not influenced by the winds of the moment, but it's something much deeper. That is, there is a historic bond between the people of Israel, the Greeks, the Cypriots, and obviously the Americans. And this is what the 3+1 interparliamentary initiative underlines. I know, and we should all know how difficult and how rare it is for the US Congress to see other legislators on an equal basis for a number of reasons, and this is an exception. It is one of the rare moments where 6 US senators, led by Bob Menendez, sit together with 6 Greek parliamentarians, 6 members of the Knesset and of the Cypriot House of Representatives to discuss our common future here in the region and to give added value and added depth to the relationship. The second has to do with energy, obviously. We look at energy as an equivalent of what the coal and steel was for European integration in the early 50s. It can become the base for something much bigger. We have revolutionary changes on the energy front. Suddenly, Eastern Mediterranean has become very, very busy. Only a year ago, it was not the case. Why? Because suddenly so many tankers transfer oil from Russia to East Asia. Russian oil used to go to Europe, almost 90%. These days it goes to India and China, passing through the East Med. And on the other hand, Gulf oil that used to go to East Asia comes to Europe to compensate for the loss. All these ships from north to south and from south to the north in the Red Sea through the Suez pass through the East Med. So we need to cooperate together to make sure that this trade goes on smoothly. The second has to do with gas discoveries in the East Med that have the potential to support Europe's energy needs now that Russia is no longer available. And the third has to do with electricity and renewables. We have enormous potential in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, in the whole of Middle East. For renewables to work, we need interconnectivity. We need to upgrade our grids and to make the grids available between that part of the world and Europe through the East Med, through Cyprus, Greece, and the rest of Europe. So for these three main reasons, for example, suddenly the East Med is becoming the stepping stone, the link between Europe and the Gulf. And we have the Abraham Accords, which is one stone in the puzzle, one piece in the puzzle. I just concluded a Zoom meeting together with Kairidis on the Abraham Accords with other US senators. And obviously the East Med Gas Forum that will become Energy Forum with a vision of becoming an economic forum, something much bigger, building on from the small to the bigger. And finally, my third point has to do with security. Obviously, we speak about the wider meaning of security, energy security and environmental security, but we cannot forget the hardcore of security, the small meaning of security that we teach to our students in the university, international relations, hardcore security. And in that sense, our collaboration with Israel, with Cyprus, and obviously with the United States is a cooperation for the stability, for the peace in this very volatile, very crucial era. against all threats and revisionism and risks for instability. So I see that this is a historic moment that our leaders are taking full grasp of, thanks to there is a very favorable realignment of stars, thanks to many people, including Senator Menendez, obviously, our great leader Dora Bacoghiani in Greek Parliament, obviously with Kyriakos Mitsotakis at the helm, our Cypriots friend, you, Andy, who you are doing a great job. I can say to that, and I have seen you in Washington, and I have seen you here in Greece, together with Greek diplomats such as Alexandra, our friend, Alexandra Papadopoulou in the US, in the Greek embassy in Washington, and obviously our dearest of dear friends, Ambassador Jounis, who has revitalized the US mission in Athens and has given further impetus to our efforts. So we have the right people in the right place at the right time to proceed further in this very challenging, demanding, difficult, but full of opportunity as well times. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gheorghidis, it was a good transition point, this Abraham Accords reference and the rest. A lot of people talk about the East Med. When we started talking about the East Med, they were talking only about the states that touch the sea. Now there's kind of even CSIS did a report, an American think tank, that taking a map of the East Med, extending from the Black Sea all the way to the Persian Gulf, this really, the epicenter, becomes Greece and Cyprus in such a map. How do you see that world? Cyprus has long-standing relations with the Arab world, has cultural relations and economic relations with the Balkan nations, especially those that are in the EU. So how do you see that greater East Med, and what's Cyprus ready to do?
Yes, the epicenter, and we are actually at Delphi, so...
The Amphalos.
Yes, it has always been, it seems. No, you're right, and I'm actually very much in favor of broadening this network of collaboration, and the Abraham's Accord interparliamentary dialogue, which Dimitris and I just participated online. By the way, we do so much good work with Dimitris, and because I actually want to continue working with you, Dimitris, I would actually suggest that you, like Dora, you head back to your electoral constituency immediately after we finish.
I made a break.
Yes, I mean, even the Abraham's Accord network highlights the significance of regional collaboration. We discussed energy security. We highlighted the role of the Eastern Mediterranean, highlighting both the challenges and the opportunities. So I would envision this broadening to include maybe the Abraham's partners. I would also highlight what Ambassador Jounis mentioned, that the 3+1 format is not aimed against anyone, and it does not exclude anyone. And I would say that this also applies to Turkey. There is no other country that would stand to benefit more than Cyprus. If Turkey decided to join this regional network of peace and collaboration, if essentially it began to act as a real democracy and as a country which would conduct its relations with its neighbors on the basis of international law and international norms. Regrettably, this has not been the case. Cyprus has actually invited Turkey to participate in the East Med Gas Forum with only one very basic, self-evident condition, that it would abide with the same rules that every other member in this forum is committed to. It declined to do so. So to cut the long story short, yes, I'm in favor of broadening this network to include anyone who is ready and willing to act as a partner.
That's great. Okay, you got the most time because they had U.S. partners and Greek partners who got a video message, but I want to do a quick lightning round. One phrase or sentence that for you encapsulates the possibilities of this 3+1 partnership and specifically the legislative forum.
You know, we live in a world where walls are necessary, but this is a world where we have to turn to bridges. And, you know, before there was the Abraham Accords, Greece acted as a bridge. If you look at the military exercises that Greece has historically undertaken and the partners that it brought in over many, many years, you know, this was a bridge. This construct, too, I'm very hopeful and confident that could also be a bridge of understanding, a bridge of dialogue, because we need to manage relationships that have irritants in it and manage them towards peace. We need to all bring down rhetoric. We need to grasp a tremendous amount of maturity and do the serious work of diplomacy and dialogue to manage relationships towards peace, because our children and everyone's children deserves no less. So let's keep an eye on the important work. I quote Alexander Pope that said that do the work well because that's where the honor lies. The honor lies in everyone working towards and supporting this construct and doing the work that's going to be necessary to provide peace, prosperity, and stability to the region.
Mr. Kairidis, same question to you. Word or phrase that captures for you the possibilities?
The possibilities. I think the possibilities are enormous, provided we have the right leadership, provided we talk the truth, as the ambassador implied, and we look not only to the short term and the domestic political gain, but also to history and the historical responsibility that we have. We have so much to gain from cooperating and so much to lose if we don't. Nevertheless, we also need to be realistic. We have some unfavorable developments, there is no doubt about it. Greece has been very sincere in its support for Turkey's European vocation after Helsinki. There is no other EU country that has been more supportive than Greece. One can criticize a few Europeans for not being sincere in their support, but the truth of the matter, at the end of the day, and the biggest responsibility for this growing gap between European acquis and the democratic acquis and the liberal acquis and the acquis of respect for the law internationally and for the rule of law domestically lies with the Turkish leadership. I hope that the elections coming up in Turkey move our neighbor to the right direction and not further distancing away from this cooperation that we all look forward to and work for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, and looking forward to your first in-person meeting of the 3+1 Legislative Forum. Thank you.